Hello everybody, Amanda here. Okay, so I have been playing around with glow effects over the weekend, really wanting to bring in attention and focus to a certain area of an image. So the glow isn't so much about making it ethereal as drawing the eye to what mattered whilst maintaining that lovely dreamy quality. So the picture I was working on that's on the blog is the image of the pony. I've chosen this picture for the tutorial just because it is so much more structured because it's a building, so it's just easier for you to see what's going on. So this is where I've got to. It's got minimal editing on it. This is really about the glow. So that's what the focus is, the house and the glow and the warmth. So let me just turn this off. So that top image is the layer is where I've got to. And this is where I started. And in a few clicks, I've created this much warmer effect on the whole image, but specifically created the glow on the house. So let me just share this with you. I hope you're going to love this technique and it'll be really great for your own editing. So let's just get started. I'm going to delete this stamp layer that I've created just for you to look at, and then turn on all the other layers in between. And I'm going to delete them in a minute and walk you through the whole thing, but let's just look at what I've got. This is actually two black and white adjustment layers on the top, would you believe? So I want to share that technique with you, and a Gaussian blur. And as you'll see at the bottom, there is a cutout of the house on the original image. So I'm going to show you how I've used that to apply it to the black and white adjustment layers. So we've specifically only adjusted the house. So let's jump into Photoshop. Hey, welcome back. So all I've done here is put all of those layers that we were looking at just now into this folder and turned it off. Just so if I get lost, I can get back to have a look at what I did in my original workings. So here we are, there's the original layer, and I've just duplicated it again for safety. I always do that, put the original at the bottom, turn it off just in case. So here is our original layer. Now, I think the first thing we need to do is let's put a levels adjustment layer on because the whole image is just too dark. It's underexposed. So let's just do something with that by just tucking the blacks down a touch and then bringing up the midtones, just so we're looking at a bit more brightness across the whole image. So I'm going to leave this levels adjustment at the top of the layer stack for now because I want everything underneath to be affected by it. So the next thing I did was I duplicated my base layer with Command or Control J. So we've got a copy, made it a smart object with a right click, convert to smart object. And then I said filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So let's just pull this down a bit. We don't want it so strong. And so it's at 41 pixels. There is no prescription. It depends on the image you're working with. So there's our Gaussian blur layer and there's our original underneath. So I then made this a soft light blend mode, and I probably just dropped the opacity down a tiny bit. So what I was trying to achieve, my focus is on the cottage at the moment. I was just trying to add a bit of depth to the colour, and by blurring it, you are already creating a much softer, dreamier effect. So although it's not completely obvious, you will have created some softness there in a very subtle way by creating a blur and then blending it with the layer underneath. Okay, so the next thing I did, and this is going to seem absolutely crazy, is I put a black and white adjustment layer on. So I'm actually going to put this above my levels adjustment now. So I'm going to say new adjustment layer, black and white. So the reason I'm doing this is because I noticed not that long ago, to be honest, there is this brilliant little option here to add a tint in the black and white adjustment. So it's going to tint the entire image. So if I click the button, whatever tint I've got selected at the moment, it's this colour. It's now going to tint the whole image. But don't worry about that. So what we want to do is create a tint of the colour of the brickwork in the cottage. So to get the colours to match, let's turn that off and turn this black and white adjustment layer off and come back down actually to the base layer because this one isn't blurred. I've got my brush tool selected, so when I hold down Alt or Option, I've got the colour picker, and then click and it will pick the colour from the brickwork. So I'll be a bit careful about where in the brickwork I pick it from because I don't want it to be too strong. That is a bit strong. I probably want one of these lighter colours. So you can see which colour you've picked because it's over here in your colour box. And then I'm going to click that. I've clicked the colour box, which gives me the number, the hashtag number. And I'm just going to copy it, Command or Control C to copy, turn that off. And now when I come back up to my black and white adjustment layer, let's get our properties box open. I'm just going to drag this properties box out so we can see the whole box. When I hit the tint, I am now going to click on the colour box and then I can apply the same colour. So if you look here where the hashtag is, I'm just going to go Command or Control V to copy the colour I just picked on that layer. So we're now only colouring the tint is the colour of the brickwork we just selected. So let's say OK to that. And I'm just going to drop this properties box back over here or it's going to drive us crazy. So we now have a tint of that brickwork on the whole image by applying a black and white adjustment layer, which sounds barking mad, but it works. So the problem is we only want it on the house. So I'm going to come back to my base layer. So I've got it selected. It's got the white box around it and say select subject. And hopefully Photoshop will realise I want the house. Yes, it has. So let's say thank you very much. We'll have that. The only snag is we've got this pony as well. So brush tool still selected. I've got black selected. So I'm going to paint black to get rid of the pony. Keep going. My flow's right down, so that's not much good. Let's just make sure we get rid of it completely. The rest of it's fine. It's got a couple of ponies selected. And if I was doing this as an edit, I would get rid of them. But for a demonstration, that doesn't matter. So let's just zoom back out. Now, she's got this selected. You're thinking, what is she doing? She's gone mad. I am now going to drag my selection up to the black and white adjustment layer because that's where I want it. So let's left click and drag it up and drop it on the black and white adjustment layer. So now, because the cottage is white and everything else is black, the black and white adjustment with the red tint that we selected is only applied to the cottage. So turn it off, turn it on, and you can see you've got a very subtle change of colour to that cottage. So that's great. We've strengthened the colour of the cottage, but we want something a bit more than that. So what I then did was come down to colour dodge to, whoops, have I done that on the wrong layer? I have. I've just selected colour dodge on this base layer. I need to make sure my black and white adjustment layer is selected. I've come back up, I'm on the black and white adjustment, and let's say colour dodge. So that is going to make the windows of the house look utterly ridiculous. So it's far too bright, but it's fine. I'm going to show you why in a minute. So the next thing I did was duplicate the adjustment layer with a Command or Control J. Turn it off. All I've done is I've duplicated it now before I make any destructive changes to it. So I want it duplicated just as it was then. You will understand why in a moment. So making sure I've got the first adjustment layer selected, making sure I'm on the mask, I then came Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And what I've done is blurred the black and white adjustment layer. So you can see already, if you look at the adjustment layer mask here, that the blur effect on the cottage that now isn't on the one above, because the one above is the one we duplicated. That's the original. So here we've now blurred out our colour dodged redness. The tint that we created with our black and white adjustment layer has now got a blur on it. So that has two effects. One, it's now bleeding that red colour, that red tint out into the environment. But it's also, because it's bleeding the colour out, it's kind of moving the pixels. So the red strength is reduced. Let's turn the one on above. Again, way too strong. So let's come up to make sure we've got the mask selected and go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And let's just make that a bit stronger again. Okay. So we've now got two layers with a Gaussian blur. And if you look, I'm going to zoom in so you can see how this technique works. So if you watch the trees around the cottage, when I turn this second blur on, the second adjustment layer, you can see how that colour is bleeding out into the environment. Now for me, it's too strong on the cottage. So all I would do is come in onto the layer mask, grab a black brush, drop my flow right down because I don't want it to be too strong, and just paint out in black where it's a bit strong on the cottage. And then you could just duplicate that again. And you do again, you could now start dropping your opacity and fill on this layer. And you're now seeing even stronger colour bleed out into the woodland around it and out here. So let's just turn these adjustments off. So that's our first adjustment showing, second adjustment, third adjustment, all by creating a black and white adjustment layer, changing the tint colour using the Colour Dodge blend mode, and then playing around with adding Gaussian blur to the masks that come with that adjustment layer. And don't forget, I created the mask quite simply. I didn't paint on it. I just used a cutout from the base layer of the cottage and dragged it up. So that was how I've started to create this sort of glowy colour effect that's bleeding out into the environment using the black and white adjustment layers. There are many ways of doing these things, but I just found this a really useful technique at the weekend with the pony image because there was an awful lot of similar colour. There are many other ways I will share with you, but this is a great way, and also a great way of tinting the whole image. I mean, if you want to come in and just put a black and white adjustment layer on the top, add a tint, you can tint the whole image and you have got every colour of the rainbow to play with. So black and white adjustment layers, not all they seem. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and it's really helpful to your editing. I am going to do one of these tutorials every Monday, so check back. Every Monday I will share something with you new. Bye for now, everyone.